The agriculture in this area of northwest Ohio is very unique in terms of the soil and crops grown throughout its history. The land near Ada, Ohio is recognized for its marsh or muck agriculture. Both the Scioto and Hog Creek marshes are particular to this area. The history of these two marshes has changed greatly since Ada was first settled in 1853. Local farmer Win Honstein shares some of his knowledge about the history of the land near Ada, Ohio.
Just a little bit of the history so far of what you know about the Hog Creek and Scioto marshes, like when they were founded, who founded them, and then what crops were originally grown there, and how it's changed to what's grown there now, what kind of crops are grown there now.
I don't know a lot about the Scioto Marsh. The Hog Creek Marsh was broken around the Civil War. At one time, there was a lot of malaria out in the marsh, wild hogs, just a lot. It was just pretty wild. Once it was broken, by broken I mean they hand dug some ditches and tried to get the surface water off so that you could get to the ground and farm it. Onions and potatoes were probably the first things that were grown out there just because of the muck soils. With corn and wheat probably along the perimeters where the muck wasn't so deep. And as the marsh matured and the drainage became better, then the tomatoes, the carrots, not so much carrots, the tomatoes and the potatoes and the onions kind of left due to either lost the market or the muck just gave out. Now, probably the biggest change after the initial ditches were installed, and the ditches were all installed by hand. And if you go out there, you'll see every half mile there's a ditch, and they're just straight. And the grade is very, very flat, so drainage is very, very important. In the very early 50s, they made what was called the limestone cut. They started out here on the west edge of the county and dug, I think, 4 miles of limestone out of the bottom of the ditch. And if I remember correctly, it's about a 3-foot cut that they took out of the bottom of the ditch. And by doing that, see the limestone, there was a kind of a rise in so with the limestone, the marsh laid lower than what the limestone was, so you really couldn't drain. So once they made the limestone cut, then that allowed us to deepen the ditches in the marsh. And once we could deepen the ditches in the marsh, then you could start to tile, put in subsurface tile, which would drain the ground. And once we did that, the marsh really became very, very productive. In fact, that ground out there, my personal opinion is that I would put that ground up against any ground that you could find in Illinois or Iowa as far as productivity. The marsh, we've lost most of the muck, but that is anticipated just for the simple reason muck subsides, just for the simple matter, it's organic matter, and it will just very slowly oxidize away no matter what you do. And most of the ground out there now is a mineral soil. There are a few pockets of muck, not many. Not enough to be economically viable for anything, but the mineral soil really is, for farming purposes, is much, much better than the muck that was on top of it. The Scioto Marsh was a larger marsh, a lot more problems with that. I don't know a lot about the early structure. It was broken after the Hog Creek Marsh, so I'm thinking it was broken around the start of the 1900s. And they had steam scows down the side of the river, which initially channelized that. And they put in their ditch work very similar to what we have in the Hog Creek Marsh. The muck on the side of the marsh was deeper, but it was underlain with a lot of issues. There was a lot of marl in spots, a lot of sand, which made for quicksand, and there was some clay areas. The Hog Creek Marsh was basically underlain with good quality mineral soil, the good black dirt.
How much longer do you think both of the marshes will still have that organic soil?
The Hog Creek Marsh is pretty much done. Like I say, one of my friends owned 20 acres, and he had probably the biggest expanse of muck. Other than that, they just small pockets. I had a couple small pockets on one of the farms I farmed. We're talking pockets, house size. There are some a few of the farms there, the muck has been incorporated in mineral soil. Makes for really nice ground, but as far as being muck, it is no longer muck. So if you're looking for muck, the Hog Creek Marsh doesn't exist as a muck farm anymore. The Scioto Marsh, there is a lot of muck down there yet, but it's very shallow, less than a foot for the most part. And it will probably continue to oxidize away. How long, I don't know. It with some of the techniques we use now down there, as far as minimum till and such, that will slow the process. Of course, there's very little wind damage down there anymore, or some, but we don't lose nearly the amount of muck that we used to lose.
As you can see, the geography of the land near Ada is very particular for this area of Northwest Ohio. Agriculture has and always will be a vital part of the history of this area.